Good day to you mga ka-learners! Welcome back to another lesson. In Lesson 1, you learned about positive and negative integers. You also learned that the value of an integer increases the farther it is to the right or above 0. It also decreases the farther it is to the left of or below 0. In this lesson, you will learn how to add and subtract integers. After studying this lesson, you should be able to follow the steps in adding and subtracting integers with like and unlike signs. Add and subtract integers with accuracy. And apply your knowledge of adding and subtracting integers in solving daily life problems. First, let's look at how to add positive numbers using the number line. Consider a series of games, each game consisting of 2 rounds, which Joy played on a machine. Here is a record of her point scores. Refer to Game 1. Let us add positive 3 and positive 5. Using the number line below, start with 0, move 3 units to the right to indicate positive 3. Then starting from positive 3, move 5 more units to the right to add positive 5. You then stopped at positive 8. So from the number line, we can see that if we add positive 3 and positive 5, we get positive 8. Let's have another example. Let us add negative 4 and negative 2. Again, using the number line, we start from 0 and move 4 units to the left to indicate negative 4. Then from negative 4, we count 2 units to the left again to add negative 2. And we get negative 6. From this, we come up with the following rule in adding 2 numbers with the same sign. Rule number 1. To add 2 numbers with like signs, that is, they are both positive or negative, find the sum of their absolute value and retain the common sign. Absolute value denoted by this symbol is equal to 4. This is the same for any positive or negative integer. Let us apply rule number 1 in adding numbers with the same sign. First, add positive 8 and positive 9. Step 1, get the absolute values of the signed numbers. Step 2, add the absolute values. Step 3, use the common sign which is positive in the sum. Our answer therefore is positive 17. Let's have another example. Let's add negative 8 and negative 6. Step 1, get the absolute values of the signed numbers. Step 2, add the absolute values. Step 3, use the common sign which is negative in the sum. This leaves us with an answer of negative 14. To add numbers with unlike signs, we use the following rule. Rule number 2, to add 2 numbers with unlike signs, find the difference between their absolute values and copy the sign of the addend or number with the greater absolute value. To illustrate this rule, let's add negative 5 and positive 7. Step 1, get the absolute values of the signed numbers. Step 2, find the difference of their absolute values. Step 3, use the common sign of the addend with the greater absolute value for the difference. Let's have another example. Positive 3 plus negative 8 equals. Step 1, get the absolute value of the signed numbers. Step 2, find the difference of their absolute values. Step 3, use the sign of the addend with the greater absolute value for the difference. Let's now try our hand at subtracting integers. In subtracting integers, we follow this rule. Change the sign of the subtrahend and then proceed as in addition of integers using rule number 1 and rule number 2 where applicable. Let's put this into action with these examples. Example 1, positive 8 minus positive 5 equals. Let's solve this one step by step. Step 1, change the sign of the subtrahend. In our example, the subtrahend is positive 5. We change its sign from positive to negative, thus it becomes negative 5. Step 2, proceed as in adding integers. Step 3, recall rule number 2 in adding integers, which says to add two numbers with unlike signs, find the difference of their absolute value and prefix to the difference the sign of the addend with the greater absolute value. In this step, we get the absolute values of both numbers. Step 4, find the difference of their absolute values. Step 5, use the sign of the number with the greater absolute value to the result. This means the answer to positive 8 minus positive 5 is positive 3. Now let's try subtracting negative 7 and negative 4. Again, step 1, change the sign of the subtrahend and then proceed as in addition. Step 2, get the absolute values of the signed numbers. Step 3, find the difference of their absolute values. Step 4, use the sign of the number with the greater absolute value to the result. This means negative 7 minus negative 4 is equal to negative 3. Let's do one last example before we move on. Try and solve this equation with me. Positive 9 minus negative 2 equals what? Step 1. Change the sign of the subtrahend, then proceed as in addition. Step 2. Get the absolute values of the signed numbers. Step 3. In this case, we apply rule number 1, which states to add two numbers having the same sign, find the sum of their absolute values and prefix to the sum the common sign. Did you get positive 11 as your answer? If so, that's great. Keep practicing with more examples you can find in the matching lesson when you log on to your online LMS account. Before we move on to multiplication and division of integers, let's look back to what we have learned so far. To add positive and negative numbers, apply these two rules. Rule number 1, to add two numbers having the same sign, find the sum of their absolute values and prefix to the sum the common sign. Follow these steps to apply this rule. Step 1, get the absolute value of the signed numbers. Step 2, add the absolute values. Step 3, prefix the common sign to the result. Rule number 2, to add two numbers with unlike signs, find the difference of their absolute values and prefix to the difference the sign of the addend with the greater absolute value. Follow these steps to apply this rule. Step 1, get the absolute values of the signed numbers. Step 2, find the difference of their absolute values. Step 3, prefix to the difference the sign of the addend with the greater absolute value. In subtracting integers, we change the sign of the subtrahend and proceed in addition of integers using rule number 1 or rule number 2 where applicable. Addition and subtraction of integers seem quite simple, di ba mga ka-learners? Sit tight because in our next lesson, we will look at multiplying and dividing integers. See you then!